And it's Ryan Gibson who takes the checkered flag, his 6th of the season, and he becomes the inaugural Earl Ross Cup champion in the Canadian E-Motorsports Network NASCAR Series. You see the celebrations already begun in the grandstands, and coming through the Peraltada for the final time, your champion of the Formula One Series in the Canadian E-Motorsports Network is the Hurricanes E-Motorsports Honda of Corbin McCauley. Darcy Ford in the lead here, coming through turn 4. Peden trying to go inside. He may have him on the apron. Darcy Ford, he's going to get it. Darcy Ford is your champion. Darcy Ford clinches the Earl Ross Cup.
And into the final corner comes Daniel Cudmore. He wins Season 2 of the Canadian E-Motorsports Network Formula One Series.
Darcy Ford, and he is the overall F1 All-Star Racing Series champion. He's got the Greg Moore Cup in his sights, and he's got his 7th win of the year. AJ Kniggle claims the Grand Prix of Monterey, and with it, the inaugural Greg Moore Cup in the Rampage Coffee Company IndyCar Series.
flat, flowing and relentlessly fast. Drivers love Silverstone. A quick lap time requires bravery and finesse, with classic corners such as Copse, Beckett's and Stowe taken at high speed, with drivers pulling some of the highest G-forces of the season. Silverstone is built on the site of an old aerodrome, and on race days the circuit is still one of the world's busiest airports. In fact, Silverstone hosted the very first World Championship Grand Prix in 1950. Won by Italy's Giuseppe Farina, and only 2 circuits, Monaco and Monza, have hosted more F1 races. And while the race has also been held at Aintree and Brands Hatch, Silverstone has been home to the British Grand Prix since 1987, when Nigel Mansell cemented his place in the hearts of British fans by breaking the lap record 11 times as he hunted down his Williams teammate Nelson Piquet and made a famous pass into Stowe.
I mean, what can I say? I mean, the crowd won the race for me as much as I won the race. They were just truly fantastic.
Mansell won here 3 times, but it's the Professor, Alan Prost, that has the most victories with 5. Lewis Hamilton is the most successful current driver with 3, including both of the last 2 Grand Prix.
Sterling Moss, Banjo, this is a trophy that the greats have held. There's so much history in this trophy and I'm holding it.
Jenson Button, by contrast, has never stood on the podium in front of his own fans, despite taking part in 15 races at Silverstone, the most of any current driver.
Is it game over?
That's game over, I'm afraid. Sorry, mate.
The 5.8-kilometre circuit has evolved over the years, with the latest changes coming in 2010, when a new infield layout was introduced designed to further improve the venue for spectators and provide an even greater challenge for drivers. You never know what the weather's going to do in England, even in the summer, so spectators come prepared for both sunshine and showers. Silverstone can be considered a true spiritual home of the sport, and with the red arrows on hand to provide a spectacular show in the skies, the action is guaranteed to be great when Formula One comes home to Great Britain.
Well, it took a little bit longer than expected, but we are in fact live for round 5 of the Canadian E-Motorsports Network F1 Series Season 3, the British Grand Prix, live from the iconic Silverstone circuit. And believe it or not, we do have both commentators here once Regan McCauley turns on his light. Jordy Carraher here alongside. And yeah, obviously, things are going to look a little bit different here over the course of the evening, as we've had to sort of pivot our strategy here a little bit, as we've had some technical issues on our side. But Riggs, I think we're going to have a little bit of a different feel to it, as we're going to be watching things from the perspective of 4 of our drivers here this evening.
Well, yes, for sure. We try to do the good old regular thing of you being able to spec in, but unfortunately that's not going to happen tonight. The thing is, though, it's going to be very interesting to get from the drivers' perspectives, because then again, we'll have a good opportunity to see how they run their races properly, how they figure out their strategies and stuff. So we're getting a very, very interesting perspective of how these races go and such. And I mean, hey, at least we're here to get the job done, to show off the race to the audience in some form. And it's at none other than Silverstone, one of the most well-known, most popular tracks on the Formula One circuit. I mean, it was arguably the best race of the real-life 2022 Formula One season. There's still 2 races remaining, but who knows? Yeah, with its high-speed corners, lots of opportunities for action-packed racing all over the place. The British Grand Prix is definitely going to be a good race, hopefully, although I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that might be the best way to describe how the Canadian Grand Prix went last week.
No, maybe not. And we'll get to that in a second. But obviously, Riggs, we're talking about seeing things from the driver's perspective tonight. we've got a couple new drivers to talk about, as we've got a new team on the grid here this evening in the, well, new for this season, but they were an original team for season 1, as North Border Racing is officially back. It was in season 1, it was Zach Sullivan and Don Kaza driving for them, but this year it's going to be Sean Everett out of Texas and Roman Furchi, who's going to be flying the Maltese flag. So yeah, a couple new drivers to watch on the grid here this evening, joining in mid-season, and good to see that North Border name back as well. Obviously, they've had roots throughout our various series over the last couple of seasons, and you know, there's obviously a little bit of catch up to do, but as we have to do a bit of catch up as well, and we're just going to get right into that with our race results from last week's rather chaotic, as you mentioned, Canadian Grand Prix, which Dan Cudmore wound up taking. It was sort of a battle of attrition there as much as anything else, as you know, there were a fair few retirements, a bit of discontent, it has to be said, but ultimately it was that number 2 coming through at the very end.
Well, yeah, so it was kind of a strange one. We didn't really have a good idea of who was going to come out on top, considering time penalties were absolutely wild. There were a couple of incidents that shook up the race as a whole, with a couple of safety cars and such, and yeah, Dan Cudmore was able to score his second victory in 4 races. Darcy Ford again in second place there, another podium for him. Jason Butler gets up there from 5th place. Andy Hurdle with a solid run from 9th place to 4th. And then Corbin McCauley right there, yeah, he scored the fastest lap of the race. He qualified 2nd, and based on conversations I've had with him, he was absolutely convinced that he should have had the race won had the time penalties not happened and such. So I can only imagine tonight he's definitely going to want to go and chase the victory and absolutely destroy the field if he possibly can. That's the attitude he's carrying in. But again, though, he wants to win, and unfortunately in Canada he was not able to get that done, and he wanted that. He knew he had that. So we'll have to see what he does tonight. And yeah, again, Dan Cudmore, once again, winner, continues to lead the points. Unfortunate luck for Colby Luca, who qualified on pole. Unfortunately had to DNF out of the race due to an incident. And yeah, his teammate Ivan Reynolds even had to deal with some unfortunate circumstances there as well. So yeah, and even Mason Pope too, coming off of 2 wins in 2 races before Canada. Yeah. Unfortunately, he didn't have the greatest qualifying result, not even the race result either. He had to eventually DNF late in the race. So some drivers ended up on the good end, some drivers ended up on the bad end. Just the way it is. It's how chaotic and just wild Canada was with all the penalties, incidents, and all that.
Absolutely. As we got a closer look at those driver standings that you were alluding to a moment ago, things pretty tight at the top of the board there. Dan Cudmore, Darcy Ford, Corbin McCauley, those 3 separated by just 9 points now as we come toward the midway point of the season. And then even some decent midfield battles here with Jason Butler in 4th, Colby Luca rounding out the top 5. And, you know, Mason Pope, he's that guy who's just kind of lurking, again, by virtue of the 2 wins that he's already got. He's got himself up into 7th overall after missing the season opener. But I think there's still a lot of movement to be had over the next 7 weeks, and I think that's going to translate into the team side of things as well, or the constructors standings, where again it's that Alpha Flow team of Dan Cudmore and Michael Dimitrov who lead, and their gap right now is 37 over 2nd place Atlantic Motorsports. That's Darcy Ford and Ty Higginbotham. And then the other 2 Cudmore brothers, Darcy and Cody, they are 3rd as Silver Hornet Racing in the team standings, but again, 4th and 5th, they are within 5 points as well. So, you know, I think we're going to see, again, a lot of movement here. And speaking of movement, we'll get a closer look at Silverstone between sessions here, but let's go ahead and take our first dip into actual gameplay as we're watching Cody Cudmore's stream here, the Silver Hornet Racing driver. Looks like he's coming through the last couple of corners to complete a lap, and it looks like he's going to move up the board here a bit, and he is 8th after that lap with 1:31.712. And so we'll see if we can get a sense of who might be a little bit further up the board. As it looks like we got a caution here as we move over to Michael Dimitrov's stream. Just under 2 minutes remaining here in Q2 already. Again, a little bit of a later start for us this evening. We do apologize for that and appreciate everyone bearing with us. As Dimitrov comes into, again, what used to be the final corner complex here at Silverstone before a track reconfiguration a few years back. As this is going to be the old start-finish straight here. And Dimitrov looks like he's improving on his time here a bit. He's currently 4th. As looks like Luca's 2nd. So we'll go to his stream here. We'll see if we can actually get a sense of who is P1 right now. And no, we're not going to do that because it looks like he's in pit lane right now. But certainly watching Dimitrov's lap as he comes through. And it's Mason Pope who's on top of the board. Perhaps not a huge surprise there. We'll get a sense of the times here. Oh, as Dimitrov runs wide and he'll just abandon ship on that lap.
Now that I think about it, we're finally going to be able to get it. It's a lights and away we go start.
That's also true. It's just a question of whose perspective we're going to get it from as we're watching Jason Butler right now as he tries to put together a lap. Just 20 seconds remaining now in Q2 as he goes through Kopp's corner. And then through the famous Maggots and Beckett section here. There's 1, there's 2, and then it's Chapel coming out to the hangar straight. As qualifying has officially wrapped up. Butler on the outside of the top 10 right now. So he's got a little bit of work he's got to do. As he comes through, let's go, yeah. And now into the final couple corners. Again, we'll see if Butler's able to move up into the top 10. And as he comes to the line, he moves up into 9th. So that's job done there for Jason Butler. As now we'll look at, it's technically Colby Luca's stream we're looking at, but we're watching, I think, Corbin McCauley trying to make the run right now as he makes it through Maggots and Beckett's. We're watching on the spectator view that we would normally have, but again, just due to a little bit of, admittedly, a little bit of a, we'll say a bit of a boondoggle on my part. I take full ownership for that. We find ourselves here watching other feeds. And Macaulay, I don't even know if this is, oh, it not only is it a lap, it's the fastest lap. 129.375. So how about that from the guy on the other side of your wall, Regan?
Yes, and only well, it was only like 1 lap that he had to get right there, and what do you know, he goes right to the top over the...
I think it was Pope again.
Second. Yeah, Mason Pope. Yeah, Mason Pope. Show off his absolute skill, although, yeah, he hit the 2 wins in 2 races, but then Canada happened, so a little bit awkward on that end, but again, though, he still has plenty of time to show off that potential and get some good points to get back up in the standings. He currently sits in 7th, about 6 points behind Cody Cudmore.
Horrible sector.
So, I mean, again, there's plenty of time because these points are very, very tight. And we also have to consider, like, for example, like with Dan Cudmore up at the top, like, he has 2 wins in 4 races. Like, yeah, 2 of these 4 races he's won, but the other 2 times he finished 5th in both races. And again, we have to also consider qualifying points, which is, yeah, it's only like kind of like half of what you would get in race points. But at the same time, though, that's still a lot of points that drivers can achieve and such. And even I think I recall Cudmore in some of those races as well didn't have the greatest qualifying positions. So a lot of other drivers took advantage of both qualifying and race points combined over, let's say, like Cudmore not getting greatest qualifying points and then getting a lot of race points maybe. So again, it's kind of a, that's why you see the Jambo kind of a mixed sort of a situation with the driver standings. Although the constructor standings with Cudmore and Dimitrov, they're both combining for great finishes, so it's no wonder that they're up there.
Absolutely. And yeah, so we're going to get a little bit of a different perspective here for Q3, as again we will pivot to Colby Luca's feed as he makes his way out on track. He's got a couple out there ahead of him as well. And so our 10 drivers who are actually in this final session are Dan Cudmore, Andy Hurdle, Mason Pope, Michael Dimitrov, Robert Narakaj, Mike Greathouse in the Rum Runners car, Colby Luca, who I believe we may be on board with now. No, that's Dan Cudmore, my apologies. Darcy Ford, Corbin McCauley, and Ty Higginbotham in that order. And yeah, we'll see what everybody's got. Again, it's just a 12-minute final session here for the top 10, and that'll determine who gets pole position. And again, we're watching it from Colby Luca's perspective right now, but if we quickly move over to Cody Cudmore's stream, or at least we will in a second. Once I do this, he, as you would have heard, missed out on the top 10, so we're gonna go ahead and put our actual overlays on and we'll watch it from the actual spectator mode here as Dan Cudmore makes his way around. We'll do our best to provide some times here as we go.
I can give you a little bit of fun facts right here based on Corbin McCauley's situation in the second qualifying session there. Yeah, his one fastest time right there came from 4-lap old soft tires. And also as well too, he actually, as a matter of fact, it was his third lap, but those other 2 laps, he exceeded track limits twice. And he crossed the line with about 5 seconds remaining right before the line. So he got very lucky there that he, like again, 3rd time's the charm. He got exactly that on his 3rd lap. And yeah, again, 4-lap old soft tires. I mean, the soft tires, they're the fastest, but at the same time, they wear down the most. So he got quite lucky there. But at the same time, though, that's gonna raise up a question. Has Macaulay's winning attitude after what happened in Canada, is that truly what we're about to witness here tonight? Or maybe will the track limits end up going against him like it kind of did for almost the entire field last week?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the other interesting question that brings up could be the question of tire wear. If we have people opting to go on to softs at any point during the race, if you're getting the hot laps at that point, you know, maybe there's a little bit more life to them than we thought. As that could be a possibility here. We just briefly had a yellow in Sector 2. And so we'll bring it over to Michael Dimitrov's perspective here. We'll see what kind of a time he can post here as he gets to the line. 1:30.206 it would appear, as it looks like Colby Luca's just taken a step ahead of him. Meanwhile, I think Dimitrov may have just gotten some kind of a track limit warning there as well, and indeed it looks like his time has come off the board. And so let's just see what we've got. So Colby Luca, his best time, 1:29.087 in this 3rd and final session, which again, faster than the time that Corbin McCauley put up in Q2 at the very end. As we'll just watch the end of Luca's lap here, or at least the second part of it, as he's lost that time for exceeding track limits. So looks like it's pretty tight here around Silverstone, it has to be said. As we'll bring it back to, this is, I believe, Michael Dimitrov that we're, oh no, this is Colby Luca that we're watching now, or no, it was, no, this is back to Dimitrov, there's the orange. A little bit confusing from this view at first, it has to be said, but we'll do our best to get that sorted out. As Dimitrov's just going to bail into pit lane. And let's see about, I was going to say about Jason Butler, but I guess he also missed out on this session as well. As again, you're seeing, I'm not sure if that's a filter or a legit thing based on the pulsing. I don't know, full-on Red Bull helmet rigs, legit or just a filter? What do you think?
Oh no, that's definitely a filter. I've seen that come from some content creators and streamers. I know there's one in particular who's into NASCAR and Formula One, who happens to use that filter, except he actually has the visor open, so you can see his eyes. Can't see the rest though, but yeah, I suppose that filter is kind of a fun thing to have there.
Oh yeah.
Kind of makes me wonder, is he a Verstappen fan, or is that just kind of all there was?
Well, we'll get the confirmation at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if we wind up with a message here in a minute or so once we get to that point on the stream, because there will be a little bit of a delay from what he sees to what we see. But yeah, I'm sure we'll find out that answer soon enough, as we'll get a look at our timing board thanks to Colby Luca's stream right now, and it looks like Mason Pope is on pole position right now. 128.871 the time to beat right now. A couple tenths up on the aforementioned Luca, with Robert Narakaj another tenth and a half back there in third. And then you see a little bit more of a gap. Michael Dimitrov exactly another second behind, as looks like Luca's going to try and set something up. Yeah, go to those soft tires for that final run. I can't imagine that'll be a huge surprise to anybody, as you get a kind of a decent view of what the drivers are looking at as they make their way around. But for now, let's just see if we've got anyone else going here, as we're down to 4 minutes and 20 seconds left in Q3. As I think this is an outlap for Michael Dimitrov. Yeah, I'm not seeing any time on the board there right now for the number 19. So it looks like just 6 out of 10 drivers have posted times so far. We'll have to try and confirm that somehow. Nope, Jason Butler's stream is saying 7 out of 10 have done some stuff, and we will see. Again, it's still Pope in the lead right now, and yeah, so 8 out of 10 now. We've just got Darcy Ford and Corbin McCauley to get on the board now. And it looks like we've got a few guys on flyer laps. Dan Cudmore on an out lap as well. Colby Luca the same. He's just come back out on track. As Corbin McCauley, he's just jumped to the top of the charts here with a time of 128.793. So, again, leaving it late here as we got a yellow in Sector 1. But it looks like Corbin McCauley, he is finding his way here. And again, we're just down to about a couple minutes left in Q3, 2:55 to be exact. As we will pull up Colby Luca's stream here now, as it looks like, yeah, he's just doing the gentlemanly thing and letting the driver on the hot lap go by.
And warming up the tires too for
Absolutely
potentially his own hot lap soon, yes.
Yeah, as we're down inside 2.5 minutes left in this final session here. And again, it's still McCauley at the top of the charts right now. Pope in second. Colby Luca, who we're on board with right now, is third. Robert Narakaj fourth. Michael Dimitrov right now rounds out the top 5. Yeah, and you see Luca getting a sense of just how warm those tires are. And you got to think he's got to be amping it up pretty soon. We'll see how early he's able to just stomp on it out of this last corner. Even right about now, I'd say, yeah, bombs away here if you're Colby Luca. And we'll keep an eye on his hot lap here, certainly. Meanwhile, the only other driver that we're watching who's on the track right now is Michael Dimitrov, as we're down to 1:25 remaining in this Q3, as Dimitrov's just run wide, I can tell you. So this lap, I would think, would be invalidated, but his track isn't red yet, so looks like he might still have a little ways to go here. Meanwhile, Luca's posted a purple sector 1, so that could be a good lap to watch here, as we'll just get the end of Dimitrov's lap. As we've got a caution here. I'm not sure if that's just local with fuel running out kind of thing. But again, we'll get the end of Dimitrov's lap as he comes through, and then we'll go right back to Colby Luca. He's just making his way through Maggots and Beckett's right now. And so, Dimitrov through the time in the 1:37s, I believe, so not the lap he wanted. Meanwhile, Luca, he's looking pretty good right now. Purple sector 1, green sector 2. He may have a shot at this as he comes through the final couple corners here. He's got to attack here because it's a quick approach to the line. And 1:28.982. So, improves on the time, does not improve the position, as we're coming up on the final couple seconds here. And yeah, Dimitrov on our other screen, he lost his final opportunity at it as he immediately exceeded track limits. So that's going to be the end of his Q3, and he will do no better than, I believe it's 5th right now. Let me just take a closer look. Indeed, 5th is the best that the number 19 will do. But again, certainly a little bit of a different perspective here, as it looks like Corbin McCauley will hold on to pole position if we watch it from Jason Butler's perspective, as I'm not sure if Luca got to the line in time or not. No, he might have. Let's go back to him actually, because he'll have one more shot at it here as he comes out of Chapel onto the hangar straight. And let's just see where the times are right now. Sector-wise, sectors 1 and 2 both red, so unless he pulls an absolute rabbit out of the hat here, and he's not because he's headed into pit lane. So that'll be the end of his efforts, and again, it looks like it'll be the number 71 of Corbin McCauley grabbing pole position by the slimmest of margins here. Less than 1/10 of a second separating himself and Mason Pope, who is going to join him on the front row.
Nope.
As again, you get a sense of the timing from Jason Butler's stream. And so it looks like our top 10 will be McCauley, Pope, Luca, and Narakaj on row 2. Michael Dimitrov and Mike Greathouse make up row 3. Then it's an all-Atlantic Motorsports row 4 in the form of Darcy Ford and Ty Higginbotham. Then it's Dan Cudmore and Andy Hurdle rounding out the top 10. So it looks like we've got a little bit of a window here before this session actually comes to a close. So while we wait for everyone to advance, let's go ahead and give everybody a closer look at what our drivers are going to be facing tonight, Riggs. So let's take our hot lap of Silverstone while we've got the chance right now. And as I mentioned, about a couple of years ago, it did undergo a bit of a track reconfiguration, so to speak, or just a different location for the start-finish line. So 3.6 miles here, 2 DRS zones, as you can see, and 18 turns, a little bit of an elevation change, but Riggs, this is absolutely a classic, so if you want, you go ahead and take it away here as we dive right into turn 1.
First of all, I can quickly confirm that I got Let's Freaking Go from the man across my wall here. That's probably the appropriate way to say how he reacted to that. But yes, right here, Silverstone, yes, for sure, definitely one of the more action-packed tracks and most well-known tracks in the schedule, and I believe it is the track with like the third most number of races that Formula One has hosted at, after I believe Monaco and Monza. And probably the one big memory that I recall personally from Silverstone is the Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton lap 1 fiasco back last year, where we just got off the corner right there, right along that long straightaway there, and that would be
the old start-finish straight.
Yeah, that'd be around turn 8 heading to turn 9 there. It was going through turns 1 through about 7 to 8 right there, where Verstappen and Hamilton just went wild back and forth. They were just going at it. Coming off of turn 8, Verstappen's got the lead, and then down that straightaway into turn 9, Hamilton gets the run. He makes the run to the inside, and there's contact, and Verstappen was taken out of the race. Quite the controversy, and Charles Leclerc almost got the job done, but unfortunately for him, Lewis Hamilton was just too absolutely skilled and got the job done at his home circuit. Yes, we got to clarify that too. Once again, this is Formula One's headquarters location in London, United Kingdom. So, and I believe you said back in Canada, Dan Cudmore technically runs under the British flag.
He absolutely does, and you know, there's personal reasons for that. I can certainly attest to that, and you know, understandable. So he's won his physical home race. Now we'll see if he can win under his new flag here. And yeah, we are not too far away from the start here now. So we'll go ahead and get God Save the Queen going, and then we should have the grid for you on the other side.
There we go.
All right, we're back just in time to get the lights, 5 lights, and here we go. We're officially getting a start here, as it looks like Pope's taking the lead right away. Luca trying to get in there on the outside. And yeah, it looks like Mason Pope's gotten the better start off of the line. Macaulay with a bit of a lock up there. We'll see if Luca's able to take advantage. But certainly some interesting action in the opening couple corners of tonight's British Grand Prix. 26 laps here for tonight's race, and we'll have to see. It looks like the majority of the midfield, if I'm looking at Jason Butler's stream correctly, 8 through 11 at least are on mediums. A few drivers certainly on softs. So it looks like Luca's on the medium. I think that's a yellow stripe I can make out. And yeah, we'll just have to kind of figure it out as we go along here.
Yes, Mason Pope, it's almost just like Portugal. He goes right out to the lead far early there. And we just saw there Kobe Luca already exceeding the track limits. That's probably going to be a warning that everyone in the field is probably going to get at some point.
Yeah.
You can only imagine based on how past races have gone. Time penalties are going to go galore, so someone might have to get lucky, especially Macaulay, who had to deal with all those shenanigans back in Canada when he probably should have won the race. No bias there.
And another lockup from him.
There. Yeah, again, another lockup. I'm not trying to jinx you, my brother. But yeah, Mason Pope is going to lead the first lap so far with the fastest lap of the field. Macaulay second place. Kobe Luca in third place, looking to get some redemption after having past couple races where his results have just not come in handy, where he's had the pace to get at least a podium or maybe even like a top 5 finish, but it just has not been there. And yeah, Macaulay is keeping a bit of a distance behind Mason Pope there by about 0.6 seconds behind-ish, around that average range. but he keeps kind of locking it up in some of the corners, so he'll have to definitely improve upon that. I can recall in Portugal, he had that one corner where he kept locking up the tires, and it was just not going well for him until later on, where he eventually did get the podium, if I recall correctly. So again, there's still plenty of time. It's 26 laps. We'll have to wait and see here. He's definitely got the speed. He showed it off in qualifying. But then again, though, Mason Pope, he got 2 wins in 2 races before that unfortunate result in Canada. So again, it's going to be a major battle. Maybe we're getting the Verstappen and Hamilton in 2021 right here.
We may well be. Here as we're on lap number 2 of 26. Oh, Luca loses it here.
Luca.
That's a spin out of the Chapel corner into the hangar straight. And that's going to send him tumbling down to 8th, 9th, 10th. Probably a majority of the way down the field. And as you saw him go down the field, you noticed a couple of time penalties in place already. Mike Greathouse grabbing 3 seconds as Roman Furci loses that out of Stowe.
There was another spin there by someone. Couldn't quite catch it.
Yeah, that was the new guy, Roman Furci, for North Border Racing. Looks like Jason Butler is into pit lane early. DRS enabled, as you can see. And Butler, you picked up another 5-second penalty somewhere along the way. Didn't quite catch what that was for. But yeah, you see he's in pit lane here to begin lap number 3. Looks like he lost the front wing.
I will take full responsibility for that, Colby. Without just taking what the jinx. So apologies very much.
Yeah, meanwhile, let's see if we can get toward the head of the field here right about now. We're watching, I thought it was, yeah, so we still have the overlays on. That's why I was getting confused, because it showed Darcy Cudmore on the screen, but it's in fact Cody Cudmore that we're watching in 11th place right now. So again, let's see if we can move up the board here a little bit. I think Michael Dimitrov's toward the head right now. He's the fastest, or he's the furthest up of our 4 drivers that we're watching. He's in 5th right now.
Yeah, we got a good battle going on there. 3rd place. Robert Narakash. Yeah, Robert Narakash. Trying to make sure off my paper here to get that right. Yeah, and Robert Narakash just took 3rd place away from Darcy Ford very cleanly, as a matter of fact. They were very close. He was able to take it away. Narakash has had himself a bit of bad luck in the past few races, so hopefully he'll try and rebound now off of his current 4th place position in the standings to get himself up there in his Guardian Autosport car.
Yeah, and I think if you ask the man himself, I know he's had a couple of kind of connection issues, so I think he'd be happy to just be racing first off. So
yes, exactly.
He's definitely put in some strong performances to keep himself in 4th, given some of those technical gremlins that again have affected us as well. Obviously, as you see, Dimitrov in 5th has exceeded track limits a little bit. It looks like the majority of the field here, Regan on the medium tires, Dan Cudmore on the soft. They're in 6th place. That might have helped him jump up the field a little bit. And speaking of that, Darcy Ford, he started this one, don't forget, back in 7th. So he's made a few moves here already to jump up into the top 4 and briefly into the top 3 before that pass you mentioned a few moments ago.
Mike Nickens is out.
So that's our first retirement of the evening by the sounds of it. As it looks like
that would be
Narakash just set fastest lap as well. Go ahead.
Yeah, that would be Nickens. Unfortunately, if we count this Grand Prix, that'd be in 5 Grand Prix. So that would be Mike Nickens' 3rd DNF. So that's rather disappointing there on his end.
And again, a guy that, we were introduced to through the NASCAR side of things, admittedly still trying to get a little bit of a handle on the Formula cars here, and obviously that's come to pass here once again. And so we'll just see how that learning curve continues for Nickens as we go along here. And we're back on board with Colby Luca trying to make a bit of a recovery drive here. He's moved back up into 8th place. And trying to get to Ty Higginbotham, who's holding down P7 right now. And notably on this particular feed, I'm noticing Andy Hurdle's on hard tires. So I wonder if he's going to be playing the long game here from 9th place. As it looks like he's the outlier on the hard tire. Dan Cudmore, I think, is the outlier on the soft. As it looks like the majority of the field is on mediums otherwise. Let's just check to see what Jason Butler's on after his pit stop. Looks like... yeah, he's on a medium compound. He notably did not serve any of his 8-second penalty there from earlier in the race, whenever he had to come in for that pit stop. So looks like he'll just have that added onto his time at the end of the race unless he has to come in again. But yeah, we'll just see how that all progresses here. As we'll flip back to Cody Cudmore's stream here briefly down in 11th, trying to find a way around Ivan Reynolds in front of him. And it looks like, well, I mean, Nickens is still showing as classified on Cody's stream at least, unless I'm a little bit behind on that. Looks like he's still showing in 13th for the moment. As Cudmore tries to make a move on Reynolds onto this old start-finish straight, and it looks like he's held the nerve to get the move done. So Cody Cudmore up into the top 10. As we will bring it back to, I think, the lead driver out of our 4 that we've been watching, Michael Dimitrov, remaining in 5th place right now. It looks like Mason Pope's dropped down a little bit into 3rd place, so that would put the battle for the top of the field between Robert Narakaj and Corbin McCauley, as they've traded fastest laps over the course of the evening.
Well, yeah, McCauley's been the fastest. I guess we could technically say all weekend because of the way real life Formula 1 works, but yeah, all of tonight McCauley's been the fastest based on hot laps and such, but Robert Narakaj is making his way up the field here, and again, you mentioned that he's had some connection issues in recent weeks, so that would be a massive rebound, along with the fact I mentioned earlier he's 14th in the standings, and that would massively upgrade him for sure to potentially get into the battle with the other drivers here as well, considering, yeah, with him at Guardian Autosports, just been kind of a situation where you mentioned Mike Nickens' situation, more of the NASCAR guy, not really necessarily Formula 1 guy, more trying to have fun on the Formula 1 side, and Narakaj again with connection issues. So again, it'd be quite the surprise, be quite the upset, but at the same time though, he's got a lot of talent, so it would not be surprising, but also maybe a bit surprising, be kind of in between to see him be the first driver to cross the line with the checkered flag. But again though, Corbin McCauley has shown his pace, and yeah, again, Mason Pope falling down the positions, kind of a oddity, but again, McCauley and Narakaj showing off speed very earlier.
And speaking of showing off speed, looks like Colby Luca's made another jump here, unless someone pitted ahead of him. He finds himself in 7th right now, trying to track down Ty Higginbotham still for 6th. Looks like, as you can see, still very much within range here. So the recovery drive from Colby Luca continues here as he goes to begin lap number 8 tonight of 26. And again, it'll be interesting to see what the pit window will look like here. As again, the majority of the field on the medium tire. You have to wonder, you'd have to think they'd have to last a decent length, presumably before headed to soft, I would think. But it's hard to say. Like, I'm just thinking of that because of McCauley's lap there in qualifying on the aged tires. I'm wondering if maybe there's a little bit more encouragement for those to go a little bit longer. But again, we'll have to see how everything plays out, as Luca winds his way through Cops. And now it's into Maggots and Beckett's here. What a combination of corners chained together here. Now through Chapel. Just a tight little run, or quick little tap on the brake, I should say. Now it's onto the Hanger Straight. Where, of course, and this might be a little bit before your time here, Riggs. The Hanger Straight, of course, was where that infamous protester tried to run across the track all those years ago.
Yeah, don't remind me of that. That's just some shameful stuff. I mean, there were protesters that came onto the track this year as well, which very awkward timing because of the incident that happened on the front straightaway there on lap 1 involving Joe Guan Yu going for a wild tumble, even going over the tire barrier into the fence and such, and thankfully he was okay. But yeah, like, all the cars still had to go through and such, and those protesters were right there as the cars were going by, and even officials had to go on the track. So it was a very ugly scene, but thank goodness that we're on a video game this time around. You could say it that way. So
absolutely,
yeah, just very ugly and shameful stuff that does not belong. But at the same time, though, again, with how popular Formula 1 is, how many people you'll get there, especially at a Silverstone Grand Prix of all races. I mean, it's not surprising, but again, at the same time, it's just dumb.
Yeah, probably couldn't have said it much better than that if we're going to be honest here, as we are just about toward the tail end of lap number 9 here tonight at Silverstone. And there you see Luca making his way through Stowe once again. Then hard brake here as he's coming up on Nickens here to put him a lap down. Then he's got Ty Higginbotham in front of him on track. Still, as Luca's moved up to 6th. Again, there may be pit stops in play here the way this has worked out, but not 100% sure on that as we're now on lap number 10. And we'll cut back to Michael Dimitrov's feed here real quick as he's moved up into 4th. And that's far enough for us to be able to know that Corbin McCauley is still your race leader. Narakaj there in 2nd, Darcy Ford 3rd. As you see, Dimitrov 4th, Ty Higginbotham rounding out the top 5, with Colby Luca in hot pursuit. And let's just see if we can actually make this work. Indeed we can. Do our best to at least make it somewhat presentable here on our side as Dimitrov makes his way through Maggots and Beckett's again. And it looks like he's, almost 4 seconds back of Darcy Ford right now for 3rd place. As it looks like we briefly had a track issue there. And if we look at Dimitrov's stream here, it's indicating a pit window between lap 12 and 15. So if he decides to stretch it out, that window's coming in a couple laps time as Darcy Ford is pitted from 3rd place. And there you see the gap at the top of the field, albeit with 3-second time penalties for both of the drivers in the top 2. Corbin McCauley leads still, but Robert Narakaj is there about, half a tenth back right now, perhaps in a DRS zone here. As it looks like that gap is shrinking here. I wish we had access to one of their feeds, as Dimitrov might be starting to get a little squirrely on those mediums. And so...
Yeah, now
go ahead.
Now noticing the time penalties. I was just thinking in my head there about a lap ago or so. I'm like, yeah, there's time penalties just don't seem to be very frequent this time around. Maybe we'll get a bit lucky. And then what do you know? My mind just transfers over to the game, even though we're not even using a console ourselves. So
exactly. Yeah, just one of those things here. As again, we're riding with Jason Butler, who looks like he's made a pit stop now, and he's moved over to hard tires by the looks of things. Get a good look behind the proverbial helmet, so to speak. As Butler not having the best night, running down in 13th, and again with an 8-second time penalty still to be served, although it looks like he's got a little bit of time to do that with Roman Furci and Mike Nickens being just that little extra stretch behind.
See, Michael Dimitrov is getting into the back here of Robert Narakash for second place. I mean, obviously there is the time penalty, but again, though, still going for it.
Well,
still right behind him. Macaulay is about 10 seconds ahead at 10.5 now.
But you mentioned the time penalties. That effectively makes it a net second for Dimitrov right now, as he's going to come in this lap, it would appear. We just saw that indication from his own control there. And Dimitrov himself has just picked up the 3 seconds. You saw him just go wide.
Oh, it's all happening. It's happening now.
Everything is happening, yep. As we'll cut over to Colby Luca now, as he's coming through Maggots and Beckett's here. As the pit stop cycle has seen him move up into 4th now. Which, I mean, that's right about where he was, so kind of working his way back after that early spin that we were on board for. And he's going to come into pit lane this time around as well. So, I would imagine... Oh, it looks like Narakash has actually picked up an additional 5 seconds of penalties there, if our timing board is right. Which, I mean, after last week, that's not necessarily a guarantee either. As looks like, yeah, we saw Dimitrov going into pit lane, Narakash into pit lane as well. And again, it'll be interesting to see if he decides to serve any of the 8 seconds now. I don't think he has to, because, I mean, Jason Butler would have had to earlier as well. As we'll jump back up to... Oh, I think somebody got turned around in pit lane there, if you saw that. Guessing that was... I think that was Nickens, if I had to guess. The red, white, and blue. Certainly fits the scheme. But nevertheless, we are back out on track with Colby Luca here right now, running in 6th place. Pit stop made. And looks like the majority of the field's moved over to the hard tire. Which, based on them coming in around lap 12, seems like the sensible play here, Reegs.
I thought I just saw in Dimitrov's perspective there, it said at the bottom, yeah, someone was disqualified from the session, apparently. I don't know what the context of that is. I think it might have been Narakash? Yeah, it was Ronnie Mack.
Man.
I think Robert Narakash just got disqualified.
That is an absolute game changer if that's true. Because obviously he and Corbin McCauley were battling throughout. But if that happens, as you see Mason Pope's just posted the fastest lap of the race here now. Things might change a little bit as we see Jason Butler making a move on Ty Higginbotham to get up into 8th place on track. Again, notable that Butler still has those 8 seconds of penalties to account for, as we're watching it from his stream. But really, Reeves, that looked like a pretty clean move. Sure. As we will come back to Colby Luca here now. And yeah, we'll just try and make some sense of what's gone on here. Maybe that was... I wonder if that actually was Narakash that got turned around in pit lane. That might have been the reason for the disqualification, if that is true. That would make sense. I mean, certainly not the way he would have wanted his night to end, if that is in fact the case, but that appears to be where we are right now. Again, without the benefit of full timing board right now.
It's just sad. Robert Narakaj, like, he's had so many connection issues, and then the one race, the one Grand Prix where he's finally able to show himself off and possibly even have a shot at a really good finish, and he was making his way up through the top 5 there, even up to 2nd place. Yeah, and he even says there left the session. Yeah, he gets the connection issues. He finally gets into a race. He's looking good, and then boom, something happens to get him out of the race, and it just has not been a very good start for a driver who I would say, like, on paper, he probably should be, like, up there in the standings with everyone else, like Dan Cudmore and Darcy Ford, Corbin McCauley and all them, but no, he just has not had any very good luck whatsoever, so all I can say is hopefully at some point we'll finally be able to see his talent on hand, be able to finally complete a race.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those, if not for bad luck, he'd have no luck at all situations here, as we're riding with Michael Dimitrov now in 5th place. Oddly enough, the next guy behind him on track happens to be another guy we're watching in the form of Colby Luca, but there's 10 seconds between them, as it looks like, you know, after sort of an eventful start here, Riggs, it looks like things have really spread out on the track, and again, it's hard to know what's entirely going on up front without the benefit of the stream of either Mason Pope or Corbin McCauley, if they are. But this is the best we can do here. It looks like Andy Hurdle is pitting, and there's Corbin McCauley posting the fastest lap of the race, 32.2 that time around.
I mean, yeah, you were saying there it's kind of difficult to see what's going up front, but based on the drivers and the patterns that we're seeing with the leaderboards that we can get here, as long as something doesn't go wrong in the final couple laps here, that we are eventually getting to 10 laps remaining. Hopefully the man on the other side of my wall here sounds positive rather than possibly having a steering wheel possibly slam into the wall, so yeah.
Well,
hopefully it's a positive end.
Well, I can tell you that on the track, Dimitrov is 14 seconds behind Mason Pope in 2nd. Not 100% sure what the gap is from